Order. In accordance with Standing Order 38, a motion to adjourn the House is deemed to have been made and seconded at this time. Therefore, the question is that the House do now adjourn. The Honourable Member for Elmwood Transcona.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and it's a pleasure to rise to follow up on issues I've raised earlier in question period, and in particular, I'd like to raise an issue that has to do with the Phoenix payroll system. So that issue, Mr. Speaker, simply put, is that thousands of civilian members of the RCMP have been told that the government is keen to transition them over to the Phoenix payroll system. Currently, they're paid on the payroll system of the RCMP, which has not had the problems that Phoenix has had. Those problems are legion, Mr. Speaker, but you know, we know of cases even just in Elmwood Transcona of federal public servants who have had their home put in jeopardy, have had serious strain put on their family. Civilian members of the RCMP don't want to be put in that same boat, and so I think quite reasonably just want to wait until Phoenix is actually fixed until they're transitioned over. And at one time in the life of this Parliament, the president of the now former president of the Treasury Board made a commitment that civilian members of the RCMP would not be transitioned over to the Phoenix payroll system until it was fixed. And in fact, a memo went out that said that that initiative was indefinitely suspended. Unfortunately, sometime after that, another memo went out saying that it had simply been postponed and that in the spring of 2020, civilian members of the RCMP would be transitioned over. This week, we heard that an internal government memo estimates that it may take up to 10 years in order to fix the Phoenix payroll system, and it'll certainly take 4 or 5 years, Mr. Speaker. So for those who aren't great at math, that means that the spring of 2020 is coming long before government itself estimates that Phoenix will be fixed, and I think it's quite reasonable that civilian members of the RCMP want to wait until that's over, and so I'm looking for some reassurance from the government today that they will wait until they've got Phoenix right before they put the pay of thousands of civilian members of the RCMP who do great work on behalf of and for Canadians in jeopardy. And so that's what I'm here to ask, Mr. Speaker, is would the government kindly wait until Phoenix is fixed to make this transition so that they don't put those lives, you know, in undue or subject them to undue strain because of the payroll system. Thank you.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Families, Children and Social Development.
I thank the member opposite for the question. The late shows, as they're referred to here amongst us, generally follow on to questions that were asked in question period, and the issues raised around the RCMP are not related to the question that have generated this opportunity to have a follow-up question, and I will ensure that the member opposite gets a response from the minister responsible, because those specifics, while not dealt with in the original question and have emerged subsequent to the conversations, deserve a clear response. But let me say that in relationship to the Phoenix pay system, we know that the ongoing problems with the Phoenix system have caused unacceptable hardship for hardworking and good people in the public service, our families included in many cases. Mr. Speaker, our government has been taking action on this complicated file, and we continue to do so until all employees get paid accurately, get paid fairly for the work they've done. We do this every time. This is the minister's top priority within the jurisdiction that the minister has responsibility for. I'd like to also take this opportunity to update the House on the significant progress that's been made to stabilize the Phoenix system. Public Services and Procurement Canada is working with the Treasury Board Secretariat as they focus on options for the next generation of the HR, the Human Resources pay system. The Auditor General's report states that this issue began because the scope and complexity of pay transformation was vastly underestimated. That's the quote from the Auditor General, vastly underestimated. And the system, in terms of its functionality and its testing and its training, were de-scoped to save money. In other words, the previous government saved money on the backs of public servants. This is unconscionable. And they did this to meet timelines to balance their budget, not to make sure people got paid properly. Indeed, the report confirms that what we have long maintained on this issue is true. We've taken steps to immediately implement the Auditor General's recommendations by strengthening policy instruments, governance structures, and of course project management approaches around government-wide information technology initiatives. We'll improve training and become engaged earlier, and we'll analyze project trends and these issues more deeply as we go forward. In addition, we've implemented measures to stabilize the pay system and reduce the backlog of late transactions and wait times for missing pay. These measures are well aligned with the recommendations made by the Auditor General. And I want to briefly elaborate on these measures. Increased capacity, improved service are two of the key accomplishments. With the funding provided in Budget 2018 of $431.4 million over 6 years to continue to address the pay challenges, we've increased the number of employees at the Pay Centre and regional offices to more than 1,500 public servants. That's more than double the number of compensation advisors since Phoenix was launched. In addition, our government continues to roll out the PayPod delivery model. This is critically important because this new system allows us to group models together for compensation advisors and compensation assistants assigned to specific departments or agencies. These teams work cohesively to process current intake with the effective pay period while also working through the backlog and addressing outstanding cases in an employee's file. This is in contrast to the previous approach from the last government, which was to address pay issues on a transaction-by-transaction basis. Our model provides better service to employees and departments and agencies served by the Pay Centre and is starting to show positive results. Since January 2018, the number of transactions waiting to be processed in departments and agencies by PayPods has decreased by 160,000 individual claims. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Elmwood Transcona.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I would note that this exchange is in follow-up to a series of questions I asked in question period on October 26, 2018. The first was a general question about Phoenix. The supplementary that immediately followed that question went as follows. It's why civilian members of the RCMP are upset that the government has reversed a previous commitment not to put them on the Phoenix payroll system until it's fixed and instead has created an arbitrary deadline of 2020. It goes on and it finishes, why are the Liberals risking doing material damage to the men and women of the RCMP when the payroll system is not ready to go, and will they reverse the decision? So I think I am very much on topic in my follow-up and asking the Parliamentary Secretary to address the issue of RCMP members, civilian members who are going to be transitioned to Phoenix. This arbitrary deadline creates a lot of anxiety in their life, particularly as they hear the stories of federal civil servants who have been going through a kind of hell, Mr. Speaker, when they're not getting paid properly, they're overpaid, they're underpaid, they're not paid at all. And I would simply ask, if he's not prepared to answer the question today, could I get a commitment from him with a letter either deferring the
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
I could give a comprehensive response to the request if I could have heard it, but unfortunately he got cut off. What I can stress to the member opposite is that I will certainly try to get the information he asks for regarding the decision involving civilian members of the RCMP and make sure that he understands fully why the decisions that were made have been made. But Mr. Speaker, let me stress again that we're taking action so that all employees get paid accurately, on time, every time. The Auditor General has said that this is a complex problem with no quick fixes, and our government is taking action on many fronts to stabilize the Phoenix pay system, and we're making steady progress in reducing the backlog and keeping it from growing while we eventually implement a new system. There's a lot of work to be done thanks to our integrated approach and making sure that we work with the public service unions, their departments, agencies, employees. We continue to move forward on this file, and let me add that all of us who deal with this on a day-by-day basis in our constituency offices are as committed to the member opposite to making sure that people who work get paid and we don't balance budgets on the back of employees by short shift.
The Honourable Member for Yorkton Melville.